So my deadline for sending the cookbook off to the printers was a couple of weeks ago now. I always knew it would be a lot of work, but I don't think I was prepared for just how much of a slog it was to get it totally in tip-top, sendable shape. There were more final checks of that document than you would believe, and that fine-tooth combing type of work I find so tedious. It creates so much tension in my body and requires a level of force, discipline and focus that just does not feel healthy after a while. Anyway, I got it sent off, and then I was really excited to shift gears into self-care and finally make time for things that I'd been putting on hold for a while. But that didn't go entirely to plan because sending the files off to the printers was kind of the first step in a series of frustrating events, like my bank being unwilling to pay the printers at first because they're an overseas business. All the emotions I'd been putting on hold reared their ugly head after I submitted it, and a lot of life admin needed to be attended to. But I've done my best to still imperfectly do self-care in and around everything else. I mean, I think that's probably a very relatable reality. Like, life doesn't stop when you reach a deadline or finish a big creative project. You still have to attend to daily chores, and stuff will still come up that you just have to deal with. But it's felt really good to attend to odd chores that I haven't had time for, clean my space, and offload some of my possessions I've grown out of that were just taking up a lot of physical and mental space. I'd also stopped scrapbooking and had been putting off starting a new one because collaging the front, as I like to do, became this big mental hurdle. But I finally sat down to do that, which felt amazing. Procrastination always feeds my perfectionism, so it felt really good to push through that with this relatively non-consequential, low-stakes creative task. And I really like how it turned out. I've been stretching a lot because I noticed my body becoming a lot more tight and achy as I approached this deadline, especially in my hips and shoulders. I somehow clench those areas when I'm sitting down doing something that requires my full attention. I took myself out on a little solo date after the deadline to a favourite Japanese restaurant, which was super fun. I did some journaling while I was there, reflected on the month that had been and the month that had come. And it was really nice to have an activity while I ate because I find it really hard to eat slowly when it's just you for company. I then got some chocolate frozen yogurt and saw a film with a gift card my brother gave me for Christmas. Thank you, Luke. The film was based on a real story and had a lot of political parallels to today, while still managing to be a heartfelt animal movie about a penguin. Going op shopping always helps my internal motor slow down as well, as does making something with my hands. I've seen multicoloured paper bunting in the backgrounds of a few people's videos lately, and it just looks so cheery and endearing. This came together with a $4 pack of origami paper and a 1-hour session with my Stanley knife and glue stick, and I think it came out looking super cute. I somehow managed to hang it at the perfect height too, so that it doesn't get in the way when I walk under it. A subtle room update to mark a new chapter. Cooking has always felt like the most integral part of self-care for me and easiest way to reconnect to myself after a busy period or a period which has disrupted my routine. And it's not so much that I want to cook more healthily, although that incidentally may be a part of it. It's more that I want to realise the short list of recipes and cravings that I've had in my head and bring them to life. So like bring what's in here onto my plate. Cooking is my easiest way to bring my dreams into reality, and so leaning into that creative control feels really good, especially in a time where the world can feel like a doomed dumpster fire hellscape of suffering, you know. So the first thing I've been wanting to make was a really traditional lasagna with bechamel and a super thick layer of spinach. That's how I had it growing up anyway. I can find lasagna a bit rich, a bit too acidic, but when the craving strikes, I say lean in. I chop all the vegetables really small, use spring onions and garlic infused olive oil to make it a little lighter on FODMAPs, and then add chopped parsley, nutritional yeast, chopped olives and basil pesto to the sauce to sort of zhuzh it up a notch. I put spring onions and nutmeg in the bechamel and made that with a base of soy and coconut milk. It's amazing what baking in a heart-shaped tin does for your happiness levels, and while that baked, I made a Greek cabbage salad, which is a recipe in my upcoming cookbook. It's fresh, minty and crunchy and really complements the rich heaviness of the lasagna. This was so comforting on a cold winter night, and I happily ate all the leftovers. The next thing I made was some rice paper dumplings to store in the freezer for quick lunches and snacks. I made a samosa version as well as a cheesy ramen version. I'm realising that the low FODMAP amount of a couple of tablespoons a day of chickpeas does more good than harm to the second half of my digestive system. I definitely need to not overdo it, but something like these samosa dumplings are great because they already have the perfect amount in them, and I get sick of hummus really easily, so this is good. While I'm assembling these, I want to explain the story behind the title of my upcoming cookbook, which, to my delight, many of you really liked. I called it I Want Dopamine for Dinner as a nod to my relationship to food and cooking growing up with undiagnosed ADHD. I was a kid that took an interest in food and got involved in the kitchen sort of as soon as I was allowed, and eating and cooking delicious food became my biggest coping mechanism for undiagnosed ADHD, as by ensuring I had regular intervals of deliciousness to look forward to in my days, I could get my daily dopamine hit. Food and cooking became a really grounding anchor to my days and led me to have quite high expectations for how delicious food should be and how the experience of eating should make you feel. All to say that while I get my dopamine from more sources now, I still really do always want, genuinely, I do want dopamine for dinner. These dumplings take just 15 minutes to cook in an air fryer, and I realise do wonders for the FOMO that I get when you're gluten-free and live in Melbourne and are surrounded by extremely good laminated pastry lunch options like spinach and feta rolls that you can no longer have. I always crave a really excellently executed roast potato when I'm needing to ground myself. I made these twice cooked crispy maple mustard potatoes from my book Big Mouth, which are slightly sweet while still being very savoury. They're creamy on the inside, crunchy and a little caramelised on the outside. Truly incredible. A good potato takes time and I think requires an oven, not an air fryer, but it's so worthwhile. I think everyone's obsessed with making a really good roast potato because when you do nail it, it kind of feels like everything's right in the world, just in a small kitchen experience kind of way. Another favourite meal that helps me to reset, but this time in a more vibrant, life-giving way, is this tofu-inspired cumin, lemongrass and coconut tofu with a chili mint ribbon salad and cabbage slaw. It tastes like a takeaway tofu salad rice bowl, but like a million times better. Whilst in an inevitably white person way, I really pride myself on knowing my way around a block of tofu in terms of injecting it with tons of flavour in a succulent, never dry kind of way. And I really build on those skills in I Want Dopamine for Dinner. The salads are really simple and handily keep really well, and you cook the tofu over low and slow heat until it's kind of caramelised and it's soaked up all the flavour. I serve this over seasoned jasmine rice with a big dollop of coconut yogurt and blissfully floated away. Another way I like to feel more connected to what matters through cooking is using seasonal ingredients. Our lemon tree is currently exploding with citrus, and I use the zest of a whole 2 lemons, slow clap, to make almond thumbprint cookies. Having a baked good on hand adds a lovely thread to your days and helps me shake up my snacks, which I can become quite attached to. I also made my quinoa banana bread cookies again because they slap, frankly, and are also incredibly filling as they're quite baked oatmeal adjacent. These made the kitchen smell so safe and cozy. Then I made some of my scrambled eggy tofu because my biggest craving recently has honestly just been for a truly fabulous breakfast burrito with like every colour of the rainbow in there. Rice, crispy potatoes, the whole gamut. I was delighted to find these real-size gluten-free wraps by Gluten Free Precinct at my local health food store, which allowed me to have the authentic burrito rolling experience. This was 10 out of 10. It was lighter and on the maybe blander side than your average burrito, but my stomach really appreciated that, and I ate this one dab of hot sauce at a time, and it was honestly so satisfying to realise exactly what my taste buds had had in mind. I'm about to go on a bit of an afternoon excursion. There are always so many places in Melbourne I'm yet to try out. So on today's agenda is a onigiri Japanese cafe, a hole-in-the-wall place that makes their own tofu, and a gift bookshop, scrapbooking type shop, which is very beloved, and maybe a vintage clothing store. I'll see how I go. I'm going to pace myself. I just ate half my burrito for lunch, and I'll eat the other half when I get there. The aim is to approach this in a paced way, which I am getting better at, and yeah, I'm excited. Let's go.